Okay, and we're back. So just to remind you where we left off, we're creating this REST API using MongoDB and Node and Express. So where did we actually leave off? We had two routes done, the show all users and the create a new user. But just to review a little bit, we got connected to our MongoDB database here. We set up the model for our user, and we started these routes. Like we said, the show all the users and the add a new user. So we still need to delete a user, edit a user, and show an individual user. Okay, so let's see. I think we'll do a show an individual user next. Okay, so showing an individual user, that's just going to be a get, right? Because we're not adding anything. And what did I say we're doing? Show individual user. Okay, and so let's get this up here a little bit. Let's also, I'll make this a little bigger. It's probably, looking at that last video, it's probably a little small. Speaking of the last video, sorry for that crazy noise that was going on in the middle of the video. I have no idea what that was from. Apologize for that. Hopefully it doesn't do that again. At any rate, so this should be a lot like the last one. Do router dot get, and it's going to be the slash, but it's going to be with the ID, right? So the ID in this case is a lot like a variable. So when you use that colon there, it's going to be anything after that slash, whatever you put in there, we're going to be able to access in here. Okay. So we got the path, and then we also need the callback, basically, right? So request response function, and what do we do that? Do we do user.find, okay? Because that's what we're doing. We need to find the user out of the database, like we did up here. We did user.find, and we did this, left this empty because we wanted to find all of them, right? So this time we're actually looking for a certain one. Sorry, I'm distracted by my crazy cat over here. She's destroying my kid's artwork that's hanging on the wall for some reason. Bizarre. Anyway, so as I was saying here, we gave it the empty object. We wanted to show everything. Well, now we have something that we want to find. Instead, we want to do by this underscore ID. Why is it underscore, right? Because let's check this out. Remember Postman? The ID that Mongoose gives it is actually called underscore ID, right? Yeah, so let's check that out. ID, and where are we getting the ID from? Remember we were just talking about this. It's going to be, this is where we're going to get it from. So it's going to be rec.params.id. Wow, so what params here? Remember here we did rec.body. That means it's coming, we're getting it from the body of the HTML page or from the form. Rec.params is when it's in the URL. When it's in the, www.whatever slash whatever. In this case, our whatever is our slash ID. So that's the params. Should a better way to do this instead of the slash ID. For this, it could be any of the fields that we have in there. It could be name, first name, last name, whatever fields you've defined. But since it's really common to do this by ID, they actually have a command just for it, and it's find by ID of all things, right? Crazy, I know. And then you don't have to do, oops, I put that in the wrong place. You do find by ID, get rid of that, instead of find, right? And then here, you don't even need to do the object, you just do what it is, rec.params.id. Just tell it what you're looking for without the object. And then you just have it call back over here. Request response. Right? Looks familiar. You probably noticed that mistake as I did it. Find by ID. Alright, so look for a user, find by ID. What ID? The rec.params.id. And then we're doing that. What are we doing with it, right? Oh, I got this in the wrong place. We did request and response up here already. This is, here's the crazy cat again. Here's where we're doing the getting back from the database. Right, so this part up here is the initial root request and response. Then here is where we're interacting with database. We're saying, hey, database that has the users find by ID, give me this thing, and then here's what I want to do with it when you give it to me. If there's an error, we'll return console.log error. Otherwise, let's do something with this. That was the error, but if everything goes right and we have this data, we're just going to res.json data, right? Okay, so let's see. Let's save that. Let's take a look at this. So when we made this one and created an ID, this ID right here, right? So in theory, we go here, localhost / users, and we put in the ID, because that's what we told it. It was, remember here in the root we did, remember since we're in this users routes, we know that anything that's / users is actually in this page is just /. We don't have to put the users, but it's implied here, or programmatically it's users / ID. So users / ID, right? So when we click this, it should give me back just this. Let's see if we did it right. Sure enough, cool, look at that. So what about if we gave it one of these bad ones? If we do that, it should give us just that guy, right? Yeah, so they're not good entries, right? Because that was before we had our body problem. But the point is that it's working. Okay? Alright, one down. Alright, so we've got our show all the users, create some users to actually show one user. Let's get rid of users. What if we get rid of these bad ones, right? How are we going to do that? Okay, so again, it follows a similar pattern as all these other ones. So, but let's just say what it's going to be. It's going to be a delete, right? And it's going to be delete a user. Okay. So just like these, you do router, but this time it's going to be a delete. What are we going to delete? Just like before, it's going to be delete. We're going to find it by ID, right? Because how do we know what to do? We have to tell it which one we're going to delete. Same idea, just the way we wanted to say, well, which one are we going to show? We have to say, well, which one are we going to delete? So it's kind of the same idea. Request response. Okay, and then again, same pattern as above. We're going to user, and Mongoose has a special one for this. We could do find it and then run a command that does the delete it, but it's a common one, so they actually have find by. And if you look at what Visual VS Code does, it actually gives you some options for what it trying to autocomplete for you, right? Find by ID, which is what we did up above. Find by ID and delete, remove and update. I'm not sure exactly what the difference between remove and delete is, but I've used remove in the past and it seems to work, so I'm sure we could take a look at the Mongoose docs and it'll tell us the docs on Mongoose are pretty good. You definitely should get used to trying to read docs. I know sometimes they're, especially as a beginner, they're a little intimidating because they're written with lots of jargon and stuff like that, but sometimes it's just that's where you need to go, so try to get used to it. At any rate, find by ID and remove. Okay, great. Find by ID. Which one? Okay, just like we did up here, I'm gonna do the same thing. Since if we just did the thing with the find, we'd have to do an object and say ID colon and what's the ID. But again, it's this special method, so we just put the ID. And we're going to access the same way we did the past one in the parameter. So rec dot in the URL rec dot params dot ID, and then if there's an error, do something. Otherwise, do something with data. Right? Getting used to this pattern yet? Everything's error data, right? Okay. If there's an error, return. I'm sure there's better error handling this, but this is not really the point of this video. Just you need to show that you have to do something with an error. If you have an error, okay, you can't just let it hang out there. You'll get it'll complain if you do that. And then if there is no error, we're gonna res dot JSON data again. I'm not sure what's going to come back from that. If it gives us the thing that we deleted, or what does it do, or maybe we can, well, let's just try that. Let's just see what happens, because I don't remember what happens. Let's try it. We'll go to Postman again. Let's get rid of one of these, right? Just remember that it's the one that ends in 8A8, right? So it's going to be this same path, same kind of path as this guy, right? I wonder why I'm doing this in Postman and not in here when I was doing these in here, because the last one was a get. Remember, in the browser you can't do, browser's all get, right? Unless you're hitting the back end from the browser, but just in the URL bar here, it's always a get. Okay, so that's what we need Postman. So we're going to change this verb to delete, but we'll follow the pattern that we did from the other one. So now in theory, it should get rid of this guy, right? We'll see. I don't remember. Again, I'm not sure what's going to give us back here. Let's find out. Alright, it gave us back what we deleted. Let's see. So is it gone now? Is 808A8 gone? Sure enough it is. Okay. So it gave us back what we deleted. It's no longer in the database. This is the last time we'll see it, is right there in that return. Cool. So let's get rid of these other ones too, because these are lame. Alright, to get rid of it, should have get rid of this one. Cool. Okay, so let's do this. Let's add another one. So that's going to be, tell me what should this be if we want to add, right? We have to add something to your database to post, right? We don't want to do it if we could do this, keep this guy in here, that's gonna we haven't described to our API, like there's no route for that, right? So that'll be an error. What was the route for this? It's just a post to /users, right? So we send, it should give us data as JSON, and then back here it should be both of them. Good. Okay, so we now have 2 users in our database. We have routes for showing all the users, creating a user, showing individual users, and deleting users. There's only one left really to do, and that's to edit user. Let's take a look at this, by the way, just to make sure this is also chill, right? Yep, so there we go. Cool. So one more to go. We just have to do the edit a user, right? So for that, the edit one, we had the other ones we had get, we had post, we had delete. This one's called put. Okay. Okay. And this is going to be edit a user. Okay. So same pattern though, right? As some of these other things. Router, right? And then the verb put. And again, what are we putting? Same thing, we're trying to find the one user, and we're going to get it through the URL parameter, right? Still making sense, it's following the same pattern as above. Request response. Oh boy. Come on. Come on, fingers, you can do it. Okay, let's get the same pattern. User. Find. So let's look at some of these choices. It's giving us all these different find choices. By ID, we used that one. We used find by ID and remove. Let's do find by ID and update. Find one and update. Which one? Let's use find by ID and update, right? Because that should follow the same pattern that we've been using. I think if you did find one and update, then we could throw things like find by first name, or in that object. Remember we were saying that up here you could use the object, and you would use, for example, first name equals Alex. That would show us all the ones that have the first name Alex. But we don't need to do that. We are going to use this other method over here. Oh, not by. I'm not trying to remove it this time. I'm trying to update it this time. Alright, so which one are we trying to find by ID and update? How did we do it in the other one? We did rec.params.id, right? And handle our error if there are any, or get our data back. And if there's an error, handle the error. If we get our data back, what do we need to do with it, right? So what you need to do with it is just update it, right? So if this were in a form on a web page, you would have, presumably you would have all the data in a new form, probably pre-filled, and you would be able to edit it, right? So it's going to be sort of like similar to creating a user, where we're going to have form fields. So this is going to be rec.by again. So So we should have this. First name, rec.body.first name, and we should also have last name, rec.body.last name. I feel like that's not right, but we'll figure it out. I think hold on, give me just a second here. I'm trying to check something out. Find by the update, which one we're trying to update and what we're trying to update. Oh, that's because I'm putting this in the wrong place. Right, it doesn't go there. It goes what we're trying to update, then what we're trying to update it with, then that makes more sense. Okay, so to get the user, well, which one, find one, right, and do something with it. Which one are we doing? We're getting it by searching by the ID, and here's where we're telling it where we're getting that ID from. Then we're telling it, okay, change it with this information, which if it was in an HTML page would be in the body, right? With these names attached, and then tell it what to do with it. And then if there's an error, handle the errors and all that good stuff. So what are we going to do when we're done with it? If there's an error, we'll console log the error. If there's no error, we're going to do res.json data again, I suppose. Okay, let's try that. Let's see what happens. So we're going to need this ID, because this is just like we were doing with the other one. So it's going to be what verb to be used. We used to put, right? And then here's the ID. Why does that go there, right? Because that's what we told it, right? It's the put is the verb, and it's the slash ID, right? So there we go. There's the put, there's the slash ID. I'm going to change it to, instead of Bob Jones, it's going to be Sally James. Okay, so it still says Bob Jones, right? But let's take a look. Sally James. Now, why do you suppose that is? And I'll just tell you why that is. It wrote it to the database. It fixed it, but just the way what it returns over here is when you do this is it changes the old one. There's a way to make it give you back the new one, the updated information instead of the old information. And you do that. Where do we do that? It goes right here, and you just add another object that says new true. Now, instead of returning the old information, it should give us the new information. Instead of throwing the old stuff down here in the data, it should say throw me the updated stuff instead. So I hit save. So let's try it again. So Mary Snyder, old friend of mine. See, this time, so we did the same thing over here, just adding that new true gave us Mary Snyder. And so this should be Mary Snyder now. Okay, so that's it. And we can get Mary by her last name. I mean by her ID. Here we go. So that's really it. That's all the roots. Now, a lot of times you see they write about 7 RESTful roots. We only have the 5 here. It's because the other 2 roots are basically roots that would involve the HTML forms, like the create a new user form or the edit a user form. Those are the other 2 roots. And we just didn't do that. We were just creating the API to return JSON, so that's why we're not having those. So just to review the roots that everything we did here, just sort of from the beginning. We have the app.js, this is where everything started. These are all the modules that were required that Express uses to run. We brought in Mongoose, right? We connected, this is where we connected Mongoose to our database. And when it connects, we told it to console log connect the database just so we know what was going on. Right, so this is all stuff that came with Express Generator, right? This is where it's telling it to, if somebody says, types in the URL, whatever our URL is, /users, use this piece, and this piece is up here. It's defining what to do in this file, so that was over here, routes.users, right? So now we had to go over here, and that's where we made all our roots. And the roots that we made, well, first of all, we had to have Mongoose again. We had to tell it what kind of data to expect, and that was over here in the models. We brought in Mongoose, defined our schema, which was a very simple one. It's just first name, last name, they're both strings, and exported our schema. Yeah, I remember when we were making this before, I was a little confused whether this was correct. Obviously it was, because everything's working. So yes, we exported that, and then so we were able to use it over here. Remember, we brought it in here. Const user equals require. This is from that file we're just in, the user schema. It was in models, right? So then the routes we made were to list all the users. Remember, I did that was just to the /users, was just find the Mongoose command, right? Find, and remember the empty object was find everything. Handle an error, return JSON data. Post route to the same URL, just the / was create a new user. We use Postman to do this, but the body that they're referring to would be the body of the request. That would be like from a form field in an HTML page, right? And again, we're just returning the data that we created here. We had another get route, which was get an individual user, and we did that by adding this parameter variable. Do you remember that the colon makes it like whatever we put in there would be usable. And we did find by ID, which was, we used this ID to find in our database the one that matched that ID. Again, the pattern here, handle the error, and then do something with the data. Handle the error, do something with the data. Return it as JSON, right? Then we figured out how to delete a user. Again, focusing on getting it by the ID, the root parameter, URL parameter. Use the Mongoose command, find by ID and remove. Which one? This one from the rec params ID. Again, with the pattern, find it, handle an error if there is any, and then do something with the data. In this case, we're just returning JSON as data. And finally, added a user. Again, similar pattern, different HTTP verb put in this case, which is the verb for updating. Which one? By the URL parameter, find by ID and update. Which guy? This guy, right? The rec.params ID. Then we included what we want to update. This was the part that said when we return the data, show us the new one, not the old one. And that good old express pattern, right, of handle the error, return the data. And that is it. I hope this was helpful. And next time, maybe we'll use this API for part of the next project. Alright, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. I very much appreciate any comments, suggestions, or if you want me to make a video about something else, leave it in the comments. I would love to hear from you. Alright, thanks a lot.